For centuries, human bureaucrats have basically run our lives, right? People sitting at desks, stamping papers, making highly subjective decisions about everything from our taxes to our neighborhoods. But today, we are rapidly transitioning into a completely different era. We're outsourcing those human decisions to lines of code. In this explainer, we're going to dive right into this monumental shift. We're going to unpack how computational systems are fundamentally replacing traditional civic governance all over the globe, what the actual benefits are, and the really profound risks this carries for our everyday lives. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. What is algocracy? 2. History of algorithmic rule. 3. Modern AI governance examples. 4. The promise of efficiency. 5. Surveillance, bias, and control. And finally, 6. The future of free will.
Section 1. What is algocracy?
So, at its core, algocracy simply means government by algorithm. It's a system where mathematical code regulates society instead of human administration. And to be clear, this isn't just about computers helping humans do their jobs a bit faster. It's about computational systems actively setting the standards, monitoring our behavior, and making the actual decisions. We're talking about everything from algorithms automatically analyzing street surveillance, to assigning risk scores in the justice system, to running complex supply chains in smart cities. The big takeaway you need to grasp here is that real authority is shifting away from human-written laws and moving toward automated mathematical regulation.
Section 2. History of algorithmic rule.
Now, you'd probably think algocracy is some brand new concept born in a Silicon Valley boardroom, right? Actually, the dream of algorithmic rule started way back during the Cold War. In 1962, a Soviet scientist proposed the OGS network. This was an early computer network designed to process information and control the entire Soviet economy, a concept that, by the way, seriously alarmed the CIA at the time. Then, in 1971, Chile deployed Project Cybersyn, which was this fascinating distributed decision support system to manage their national economy. They even used it to successfully navigate a massive national strike. Fast forward a bit to 2017, and you have Ukraine experimenting with blockchain to run government auctions with perfect transparency. So the desire to mathematically optimize a nation, that's decades old. It's really just the processing power that has finally caught up to the vision.
Section 3. Modern AI governance examples.
And that brings us to today, where AI is already deeply integrated into wildly different cultures and political systems. I mean, just look at the scale of this. Saudi Arabia is building 100-mile smart communities designed from the ground up around massive data collection and automated urban planning. Over in China, the Beijing Internet Court handles litigation entirely online. Then you have Estonia, which has built what is arguably the most automated e-government on the planet. Their services are completely proactive. If you have a baby there, the algorithms automatically register the birth. You don't even have to lift a finger. And in the US, algorithms are heavily utilized in the justice system to recommend bail and sentencing based on predictive risk models. This isn't science fiction. This algorithmic transition is happening in real time, right now.
Section 4. The promise of efficiency.
So, why the rush? Why are governments so incredibly eager to adopt these computational systems? Well, let's be real for a second and think about traditional bureaucracy. It relies on messy, unpredictable human interpretation of the rules. It can be painfully slow, prone to error, and yes, sometimes corrupt. Algocracy, on the other hand, operates on massive data processing. An algorithm doesn't get tired, it definitely doesn't take bribes, and it can analyze 1 million data points in a fraction of a second. If you're a government trying to manage millions of citizens, the sheer appeal of this upgrade is absolutely massive.
Proponents make a very compelling case. They argue that replacing human agencies with algorithms creates these ultra-efficient ecosystems. They envision a future where the government is practically invisible. Imagine never waiting in line at the DMV again, because the system already knows you need a renewal and just processes it seamlessly in the background. Plus, by integrating technologies like blockchain, the promise is total, corruption-free transparency in things like government contracts and land registries. It's basically a vision of a frictionless society where resources are managed perfectly by predictive analytics.
Section 5. Surveillance, bias, and control.
But, of course, this is not a purely utopian transition. We have to look at the other side of the coin. Picture this.
During the 2020 pandemic, UK students obviously couldn't take their in-person exams, so the government used a statistical calculus to assign their final A-level grades. The result was a disaster. The algorithm systematically downgraded thousands of students, heavily penalizing kids from less affluent schools based purely on historical data. The students literally took to the streets chanting, "Fuck the algorithm." It was this visceral, massive wake-up call about what happens when algorithms determine human futures without any real transparency or accountability. The protests actually worked and the grades were reverted, but the lesson there is crystal clear.
Which leads us straight into the academic theory of Shoshana Zuboff. She writes extensively about a concept called surveillance capitalism, which is a business model that relies on extracting our behavioral data to build predictive profiles. The concern here is that when governments adopt these exact same methodologies to manage citizens, they risk treating our human experiences as just mere data points to be monitored and controlled. This kind of continuous tracking raises some severe concerns. It can reinforce existing inequalities and, frankly, drastically reduce our fundamental right to privacy.
Furthermore, we see thinkers like historian Yuval Noah Harari objectively pointing out a really terrifying math problem. He warns that the sheer central processing power of algorithms could inadvertently pave the way for centralized digital dictatorships. See, historically, democracies had a natural advantage because distributed human decision-making was just inherently more efficient than a centralized authoritarian bureaucracy trying to manage every little detail manually. But AI totally changes that math. If an algorithm can centrally process infinite amounts of information in real time, it could theoretically make a highly monitored, centrally planned society incredibly efficient. The underlying fear is that the exact same tech making our smart cities run smoothly could effortlessly become the architecture for total surveillance.
So, societies are currently caught in this intense balancing act. On one hand, we have the tantalizing promise of seamless public services, perfectly optimized resource management, and unparalleled transparency. But directly opposing that, critics are sounding the alarm on algorithms hard-coding historical biases, the opacity of black box decision-making, where sometimes even the creators don't understand how the AI reached a conclusion, and the looming threat of surveillance capitalism mutating into full-blown digital authoritarianism. It's a complex tightrope that every modern nation is trying to walk right now.
Section 6. The Future of Free Will.
And that brings us to the macro-philosophical debate at the very heart of this explainer. If our everyday lives are perfectly predicted and governed by code, what ultimately happens to human free will? This whole transition operates on the premise that algocracy is designed to anticipate our needs and gently, or sometimes forcefully, nudge our behavior in optimized directions. But if a state is using algorithms to predict a crime before it happens, or automatically registering your life events, or dictating your legal standing based on a calculated risk profile, how much autonomy do you actually retain? It's the ultimate question of the algorithmic age and something you should absolutely keep in mind as you see these technologies rolling out in your own community. Thanks for exploring this with us today.